Okay, that was interesting.
Sorry, that
Hi,
was my
this
phone.
is that's all right, man. Hi, this is Mad Cat. I'm doing another video today, and I got a special guest with me. His name is Brian Martinez. Um,
Hi, how's it going?
I'm doing all right.
Good.
So we're going to be doing a little bit of a conversation today, dealing with some MRAs. Um, Actually, it's two females, funny enough, but these two seem to be a little bit at each other's throats, so we kind of wanted to discuss our reaction to it. Now, my guest today, Brian, I actually met him. Um, he's actually a comic book artist. He does the Good Guy Comics, which is a little bit about his life. I'll let him go more into that. But I heard him on the Honey Badgers radio, and I'm like, huh, this sounds like an interesting guy. I checked out his comic. It's like, oh, cool. I emailed him a couple of times, and then I told him that I wanted to help him make his comic better, and I became the site administrator for his new website.
Which I am eternally grateful for. Um, I can talk a little bit about the Good Guy comic. I am a comic book illustrator. I've always wanted to do that. I've had lots of other ideas, but as I've gotten older and sorry, that was my phone again. I don't know who that is. As I've gotten older,
Wow, you're a ladies' man.
I've decided that I wanted to do more personal type stories, and the Good Guy story is basically a culmination of my romantic experiences going back to my high school days, all the way up to now, where I'm basically in my early middle age, and how much I've learned. It is basically like my path to this more this like I guess you could say my path to the red pill, as it were. Where I basically discovered over time, like the way the world is and how it's changed in terms of with the fall of traditionalism, the rise of like liberalism, and like all the stuff that goes into that, and this in terms of my relationships. Um, it's meant to just show it's all about empathy. That's what the book is about, for my main character, who is a male, but also for the women that he you know he has romantic experiences with. And the idea is a positive message about relationships, but also being really realistic. It's not done in a traditional sort of romantic way. I mean, there's a lot of humor in it. There's a lot of dealing with various kinds of anxiety, at young age, and like how I've changed as I got older, as well as the kinds of people that I've been with. And it's done in a very, I want to be very mature, but I also want to have a lot of fun. With the site, what I want
Okay.
to do,
Oh,
oh,
yeah,
I'm
go ahead.
sorry. No, I want when the site is up. One of the things we want to do is basically, aside from being entertained by the books, we also want to create a dialogue between men and women. To speak on forums, to talk about their experiences, um, and just sort of like to create an empathic uh, space, so people can talk openly about their feelings about relationships and so on. So there's a lot more to it, but I hope that it's a very special project. It's very personal, and it's going to take a long time. It's a long story, so but that's a little bit about the Good Guy comic.
And we're working on the site now. Like I said, I'm the web administrator for it. Um, I'm working right now a little bit around the clock, hoping to have it available for the 1st of December, but we'll see how things go. Um, but it's also a very personal project for me because I myself have been in the situation Brian has been in, and that's what attracted me. But what also really impressed me about the comic is that when people write about these things, they tend to be unfair to the people that hurt them. And
Hmm.
that's one thing that Brian isn't. I mean, he has a lot of positive females within this story. There's a couple of bad ones, but there are a lot of good ones that really send a positive message, a true egalitarian message, which is what really drew me to this. So,
Yeah, I mean, it's not about, I'm just going to be frank. This isn't about shitting on ex-girlfriends and making myself look like the poor victim or the martyr or anything like that. This is about making the realizations that, I made mistakes. I was also the victim sometimes. They made mistakes and they were the victim sometimes too. We're all human. But what can we learn from this? What kinds of, it's sort of like it does a couple things. I send the message of around each female character, as it were, that needs to be sent based on the experiences they had, based on the kind of person they have. I don't make people two-dimensional. It's all about if there's something selfish or flawed, there would be some kind of explanation, something to help you understand it. Not necessarily root for them, but understand it better. And I think that it's all about on the one hand, I'm trying to close the empathy gap.
let me go ahead and stop you there.
Oh yeah, that's fine.
Just so everyone knows, I may have to stop him a couple of times. It's just that he loves to talk and doesn't take breaths.
No, I don't.
So I have to now come in and it's like, I need you to stop so I can speak.
I'm
He
sorry.
wouldn't let me hook car batteries up to his nipples, so I have to just be mean. All right,
Well,
so
I'm sorry. Let's go on. Let's move on.
yeah, let's go ahead and talk about the discussion today. We'll talk about the comic in the future, and I hope this becomes a semi-regular thing, so me and him can talk more about the comic in a future time. So I'm going to give a brief introduction about this, and then go ahead and start talking. We can start talking amongst ourselves. So we're talking about two women today, channels Feminism LOL and also Janet Bloomfield, or JBTV. She also uses JB to stand for Judgy Bitch. Now, both of us are fans of these two individuals, but somewhere along the line there seems to have been a little bit of a rivalry started here. I don't know how that exactly got started, but Diane Davidson, feminist LOL, made a video titled "Vagina Takes Over Men's Rights." Now, she's always been of the opinion that women are not ever as good as they claim to be, and her video basically attacked Janet Bloomfield. Now, Janet had a responding video called JBTV Traditionalist, where she kind of responds to some of these claims and tries to go into greater detail about that. Before I turn it over to Brian to kind of chime in, I do want everyone to know, especially Janet Bloomfield and Diane Davidson, the both of us like you both a lot. We respect you. We like you. This isn't about we like one over the other. However, we are going to be tough. We're going to call you on any bullshit we see. That's just because we respect you so much. If we didn't do that, it would be because we didn't respect you. So I do want to get that out of the way first. Brian?
Okay, so I don't know exactly when this started, but I saw the pattern and how it got there. Basically, and I haven't followed up on this thing, but somewhere along the line, this goes back to John the Other in a way. Okay, so John the Other is another YouTube video and another MRA, and I really like his videos too. I like all of their videos very much, and one of the things that just as an aside, one of the things that's great about the people that are involved with the men's rights movement or the men's human rights movement, whatever you want to call it, is they all have a little. They're all not quite the same. Like they have their own things they bring to the table. They may have slightly different political backgrounds. They may have slightly different cultural backgrounds, so they may be coming from different places. But they all kind of want the same stuff for the most part. But so going back to John the Other, and I know I'm gonna talk your ear off here, so I apologize because this is how I work. So cut me off if you have to. Uh, when this woman against feminism hashtag thing became really popular, this is where it goes back to. John the Other was very critical, and he had been becoming critical over time. Like what started when they changed the men's rights movement to the men's human rights movement, and he actually had some criticisms about that. And then when the woman against feminism hashtag became really popular, and there were a lot of people praising it and talking about it, and then like the honey badgers sort of branched off because they used to, some of them like Karen Strawn, Allison Team used to talk with John as well. For some reason, they don't seem to talk anymore. So and I haven't pried into that because I hang out with the honey badgers online, but I haven't asked them about that. So that sort of happened, and John basically was saying that when he looked at the women against feminism hashtags, a lot of the messages were still coming from the perspective of men being useful tools to women. So you'd see women against feminism making comments that sort of like have a traditionalist lean. Like, oh, I might want to stay home with my kids while my husband works, or I like cooking for him, or things like that they might argue for, and that made him very wary. I'm sorry, you wanted to say something?
Something I remember. I don't really know John the Other. I'm still a little bit new to all of this, so I'm always playing catch up. But it was something that Diane Davidson said in a video a while back. I don't know how long ago, but she was talking about the anti-feminist movement, and I remember her reaction to that she was saying, it might seem great on paper, but she doesn't trust women, and
Right.
she's seen this kind of bullshit before, and that if they are serious, they're going to have to really prove that they are against feminism and really want equality. And that was one thing I really respected about Diane.
Right. So yeah, that's and John made the same. He made the same sentiment when he was saying, "Look, women against feminism sounds good on paper. You guys are saying a lot of nice things, but I don't trust you because a lot of the things you're asking for isn't helpful to men either. Because a return to traditionalism is something that he is very much against because it basically puts men back in the role of workhorse, or whatever you want to call it, of utility to women, human doing, as Dr. Warren Farrell put it.
Or
So
being expendable.
yeah, or their
Right.
expendability, right? Which he's very much against. Which of course most, the honey badgers and Paul Elam and all them, most of them are against that as well. So Diana Davidson sort of mirrored a lot of John the Other's um, sentiments in her videos early on, and they even are sort of like part of the same group. It's like Canadian, I forget, it's COC basically, but it's like an acronym that means something funny. It's Canadian Organization of Compassion and Kindness, I think, or something like that. And
Well, then I can say I'm very much about the cock.
yeah, so they started doing that, and as far as
Ladies,
not
I'm straight, by the way, just so you know. Go ahead.
what?
I'm straight, just so the
Oh
ladies.
yeah, okay. um, so they were both about that, and then that sort of became its own thing, much in the way the honey badgers are their own thing, and like various other spin-off, groups that are still MRAs, but they have their own little organizations. So I'm fast forward to now. Judgy bitch Janet Bloomfield, she made videos where one of the things that is revealed is that she lives at home, she is unemployed, and her husband basically is the breadwinner, and I think she's a mother too. I'm not sure
Mother of
though.
three, yes.
Yeah, she's a mother of three, so she's a stay-at-home mom, and she's basically doing all this MRA work from that's sort of like the thing that she does. So she tweets a lot, she writes blogs and so on. And I think that what's happening is because Diana Davidson is so wary of women that take the side of men's rights activists, but only because they want to put men back in the utility role or the expendable utility role, that she is very critical of Janet Bloomfield, especially because Janet Bloomfield's got she became really popular in a really short amount of time. And I think the reason is because she writes really well, she is kind of funny, and she just has like a lot of charisma. She's very charismatic, and
Yeah, the first time I think I encountered her was on the Drunken Peasants show,
mhm.
um, with the Amazing Atheist. I occasionally watch him, but started not to like him anymore because he seems to really be kind of against men to a degree, or
you
kind of.
know
Go ahead.
TJ is very critical of feminists, which is great. But he also doesn't know. I mean, like, I hate to be that guy that's like, you just don't know what men's rights is about. But he seems to be someone who doesn't want to know. Like, he basically lumps feminists and MRAs in the same boat. He says, oh, they're the same, like they're just on different sides of the same spectrum, which isn't really true.
Well,
Be-
I kind of have to give that to him though, and I'm sure all the MRAs are about to like get their pitchforks ready. But one of the reasons I don't identify as MRA, I choose to identify as egalitarian, is a few months ago, probably about 6 months ago, I tried to join into the IRC for a Voice for Men. I heard
mm-hmm.
about it on the Honey Badgers radio, and I'd always hoped that, maybe if I got there, maybe I might be able to talk to one of them. But the experience was like, oh my God, I can't believe this is what men's right activism looks like. It was a lot of men who are very judgmental and seem to really hate women to a degree. And I
Mm-hmm.
understand that this is a small amount of men. It was maybe only like 5 to 10, but they all seem to kind of have the same consensus. And it was just like ran away. I mean, it was during the time that Hobby Lobby, and they all seemed to be for the decision. I'm like, well, wait a minute. You actually got a lot of female members in here, and you seem to be judging them for being bad for thinking that the Hobby Lobby decision was bad. Plus, there was other implications as well. And what I experienced was very much what I would describe as third wave feminism. So I
Mm-hmm.
can understand where people come from when they say that. However, I have a lot of respect for the Honey Badgers, and that make and Elam and Warren Farrell. So that makes me hopeful that there are good people within the movement doing good work, but there's still enough of a bad element that keeps me away to
Mm.
being completely identified as an MRA.
Well, I will say, and I am not trying to speak in defense of those individuals, but I will say that one of the things that I think makes the MRAs unique and interesting is if you were to speak on their behalf or show up in one of their spaces or wanted to write for them or whatever, and you chose to not identify as one, they we're not going to try. I mean, we or they or whatever. We're not going to try and convince you to change sides. You know what I'm saying? Like, for example, if you typically go up to a feminist and you say, I don't identify as feminist, but I believe in equal rights between the sexes. The first thing that happens, if not all the time, is they make the argument that you actually are a feminist and you just don't know it because you believe in equality. So you
Or look
basically
up the
can't.
dictionary definition.
Yeah, look up the dental. You can't be for equality and yet not be for that.
Yeah.
And the thing is that feminism and men's rights are specifically different in that department, where they're basically like, look, you don't have to identify as one of us to be here. We won't see you as anything less. I've been treated with nothing but really well. Now I do know that there is an element of very angry people, not just men, but people, men and women, some of them gay, some of them straight, different races, whatever. but I think that they make up a very small percentage because, and you know what, Paul even said this, and I don't want to belabor this point for too long, but I think he makes a good point. When you have a group of people that have been um, their their desire to be heard has been snuffed out or silenced or dismissed or whatever for a long time, it makes them angry. I mean, like, so these guys they're mad. They're mad because they're not being heard, because they think that there are issues that they want addressed, and feminists they don't want to hear it. They say they do, but they never actually talk about the issues that they want to talk about. So it seems like it's a natural thing that would happen, that people would get really upset about that, and some of them don't deal with it very well. I mean, I'm on the Honey Badger Facebook page, and for the most part, we talk and we get along just fine. But every so often, there's like one nut that's he's just really angry or whatever, and we have to ban him. Or I mean, we don't want to, because we want to be able to talk about this stuff openly. But after a while, he just becomes a destructive element, and we have to ban this person. Not a man. I mean, last time it was a woman.
Let me go ahead and stop you there. I want to make
Mhm.
one more quick point and then kind of get back on track to what we're
Sure,
doing.
sure.
Um, two real quick things then. So one, with the Tumblr feminists that I often encounter that tell me that, oh, well, you don't know what feminism is and you need to look up the dictionary definition. My defense to that is that actions speak louder than definitions.
Sure.
But the one thing that I really do like about the MRA than feminism, and I always bring this up to feminism all the time, is that the MRA polices itself. It
Yeah.
can't control every single member, but you don't really see any passive MRA members. There are those who are actually trying to do something and those who support what they're doing. Within the feminist movement, you have the radicals, then you have the passive ones that are sitting there telling you you don't know what feminism is, and not all feminists are like that, while letting the radicals do whatever they want. The MRA
Yeah.
actually tries to police itself, and if someone speaks out of turn or does something that might hurt the movement, they're quick to go there and say, look, you can't be doing this anymore. If you can continue to do it, we're going to kick you out.
Mm-hmm.
So that is the one thing I do really love about
Yeah.
MRA, and that's why I stay around. Even though I don't identify with them, I do support a lot of what they do.
Yeah. I wouldn't. We don't have to talk about this now, but I'd like to know, maybe at some point we can talk about the Hobby Lobby thing, because um, I actually agree with the decision they made too, but it's got nothing to do with men's rights. It's a whole other thing,
And
and I know it's a slippery slope, and I know that there's a lot of other, it runs a lot deeper, but I think at the end of the day, it comes down to something else, which is more so about my personal politics with regards to government and business and the ability to choose. So, but and not really about policing women's bodies or whatever. So.
and I'm completely against it, but for almost the same reason for you.
Hmm.
It doesn't really come down to women's rights, although I think that is a major concern of this, but there's a deeper cultural reason why I'm against the decision of Hobby Lobby.
Hmm.
But yeah, let's go ahead and save that for a future video. Let's kind of get back to this. We're going to get off on tangents from now and then, but because we talk a lot. So
Yeah.
okay, so let me start off with Diane Davidson. Now she did a video, and like Brian was saying, that she doesn't really seem to trust women, and I can understand where she's coming from in this. Women, they're especially like the radical feminist, can be very deceptive and say one thing and do the exact opposite. Um, I think from what I'm seeing, it seems like Diane somehow stumbled upon Janet's blog and started seeing all these bad things, or maybe it was some video that Janet did that kind of started this off. I don't really know without talking to her, but she started to address all of these things about her being a traditionalist and how bad traditionalists are to the society that we're in. because it does bring men back to a servitude role to women, that they're the ones going out and breaking their backs and working all day while the women stay at home. Now, to be fair, the women generally are taking care of the children, but I mean, listening to Karen, that woman writes what, right?
Yeah, girl, right? What?
Girl writes what? She talks about what feminism really was like back then, and that it really wasn't there. There was a lot more equality than people believe. Like women could own land, but the moment they got married, the man became financially responsible for that, and when
Mm-hmm.
they got divorced, the man was still financially responsible for that. And
Mm-hmm.
you know, and men were always financially responsible for children, and that's why they always got them after the divorce. But with the court system, men still remain financially responsible. It really wasn't as good to be a man, you know, back in those times. And returning back to that, no man wants to do that. And if he does, then he doesn't really understand what it means to go back to that. But to
Mm-hmm.
be fair, listening to Karen, I don't think most people really understand what history is like back then. And one of the things that I found in my own research in doing all of these things is that before the women's suffrage of women getting the right to vote, which is what feminists always say, oh, we got the right to vote. There were actually a number of states back then that allowed voting for women.
Yeah,
It
and
wasn't
you know what? And
like,
the thing is too is that constitutionally speaking, women already had the right to vote. But for some reason, it was a state. It wasn't the country that was preventing it. It were the states. So and also, of course, we already know, and this also to be true, there were lots of men that also did not have the right to vote, because you had to be someone who owned land in order to have the right to vote. So if you didn't own any land, you couldn't vote either. So it was like
initially
not
it
as
did start
easy
off.
as, huh?
Plus, yeah, initially it did start off being an issue of land. I don't know precisely when that changed to just include all white men, but it was
Mhm.
also an issue of race.
Mhm.
That black men were not allowed to vote, and when women got the right to vote on a federal level, it was only white women.
Mhm.
I mean, not to take away from the women's suffrage, but it's like you kind of have to understand history to get the full context, and that context is missing from people. It's just a perception of, oh, women were, you know, wrapped in chains and forced to stay at home where they were raped all the time until the women's suffrage took over and then they had equal rights. And it's like, no, that's not what it was at all. So, anyways, Diane was um, talking about this, and then she started making quotes from Janet. Now, the one
Yeah.
thing that gives me validity, what gives Diane validity about all of this, is she actually posted where she got these quotes from. So I looked at this before, and I thought of some really good ones, but I could only find one right now that really jumped out at me. She was talking about Janet was talking about going to the gym, and she says that she often goes there to check out other women. And I'll read what she said specifically. She says, "Why am I checking out other women? Why am I checking other women out in such an exquisite detail? Well, duh, I'm trying to assess the level of competitive threat. I've already contributed to the gene pool by having 3 children, and I'm not interested in having any more. But you might be, and that could dilute the resources coming my way, and I'm obviously going to guard against that. It's rather selfish of me in the long term, as refusing to share my husband's DNA freely is probably impending our development as a species, but too fucking bad." Um, let's see. So it doesn't sound really bad on the surface, but when you put a lot of this together, it starts sounding like a little bit different, but she's basically going to a gym to judge women about their suitability.
Uh, but suitability compared to what? Like compared to her husband?
Or, well, she's saying what resources will come her way, so it sounds like she's seeing if they will be good parents, if they'll be good genetic donors for the future.
The women?
Yeah, that's what the
Okay.
article suggests. Now, the only thing is I don't know Janet well enough to know, is she like joking, is she half joking, or is she dead serious? Because to a
Mm-hmm.
degree, this sounds like someone who's joking,
Mm-hmm.
but nowhere in this is it really give an indication that she's meaning what she's saying.
Hmm.
There was another article, How to Date Older Rich Men for Cash and Prizes, Avoid Having Sex with Them and Still Imagine You Are the Exploited Victim, a lesson in delusion. Um, I think in the long term of this, I mean, if you read this a certain way, it might sound like she's encouraging young women to go out there and have sex with, well, not have sex, but be with old men just for the money. Um, and then saying that, there are websites dedicated to this thing.
Right.
So it's a little difficult because there isn't like a clear line for Janet where, is she joking? Does she agree with this? She doesn't really say that, dead set, I'm 100% against this. This is wrong. She just kind of talks about it, jokes about it, and it's like, where's the boundaries here? So, and I think that's where Diane is coming from when she reads this and takes out these little things and connects the dots. She starts seeing a pattern. Now, to Janet, that pattern may not be there, and we may just be simply misunderstanding. But from Diane's point of view, I can understand her, what she's seeing here, because again, there's not clear-cut boundaries of what Janet's point of view is. It's just, let me explain, let me joke about it, voila.
Well, it's like Janet writes these snarky, satirical pieces where she basically talks about praising bad female behavior, but she does it in a way that exposes how toxic it is. And I think that's what her goal is, right? When she talks about marrying rich men and stuff like that. It's not something that she really believes in, but she talks about like the way that women use their sexuality in a weaponized form, to get resources out of men. But it maybe it's too good, like she did a too good of a job. But I think that most guys, it's almost like her audience, which is MRAs. It's like she knows of her audience, and so they would read it and say, "Oh yeah, that's exactly how it is. Now I know what to look out for." But I think that's what her goal is, and I think that because it's the written word, and because it's as opposed to like somebody who's speaking it. But I've watched her videos, and I know what her voice is like. Like Janet's very she's sarcastic and she's ironic, and I think that's what she's doing in these pieces. I'm not defending it, but I'm just based on the videos that I've seen of hers, because I never read any of her blogs, but I watch her videos. It would seem very much the attitude presented in these articles is the opposite of the one that I see in the woman that's speaking. So, and maybe Diane Davidson she has all these blogs listed as ammunition, so she kind of covers her ass in case the defense that I'm bringing to the table right now is utilized. But where I think she initially got how Janet got her attention initially was probably when Diane learned that Miss Bloomfield was jobless and married and with 3 children, and her husband's taking care of everything, and she has all this free time to blog and write about this stuff. And that probably, because she is literally in the position that traditionalism, wants women to be in, Diana Davidson is very much wary of the idea that Janet Bloomfield could be, traditionalist, at least because she is, at least in appearance. At first blush, it's like she's living at home with the kids, and her husband is off doing something. We don't even know what he does, and she
Well,
lives in a pretty nice place.
well, one more comment about Diane, and then let's go ahead and talk about Janet's video. Um, in defense of Diane, one thing that Janet does talk about is that when she was in college, and we'll discuss her point of view on this in just a moment, but that when she was in college, she specifically set out to find a husband
Mm-hmm.
so that she didn't have to work. And like I said, we'll
Wait a
explain that in
minute.
a moment. That
Did
sounds a horrible thing to say, but there is a reason behind that.
Yeah.
But I can understand that perception of like, well, she went out to find a husband, so she didn't have to work and she didn't have to be responsible and only have to take care of the kids. I can understand where someone gets angry about that.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
let's go ahead.
Oh no, I just and I want to say also about Diane Davidson. I already said this before. I really like her, and I think that I know that we haven't gotten to a conclusion here, but I think that one of the things that I feel in my gut, and just from what I've seen, I almost feel as though Diana Davidson and Janet Bloomfield are both necessary because it's sort of like they cancel each other out in a way, and I think that's a good thing. But because I like that Diana Davidson holds women accountable in by their actions, and that's what she's doing by pointing the daggers at Janet Bloomfield because Janet's actions or choices put her in the sights. So, and it would be fair and just for Diana Davidson to treat Janet like she would any other woman that would make those same choices, whether she was an MRA or not. So I think that is fair of her to do, and I totally understand and respect that.
I agree and disagree with you at the same time. I find both of them very necessary, and their
Mm-hmm.
different points of views is also necessary for the movement. But I don't think that they cancel each other out, nor do they exactly help each other or boost each other. They're
Mm-hmm.
just two separate forces at work here. And I think this is the problem in feminism is it tries so hard to get a viewpoint that everyone agrees all the time, and if you don't, then we're going to label you as anti-feminist or that you don't know what feminism is. Especially when you start supporting men, then we're going to turn against you. With the MRA and the MRM, we've got people with different opinions on how things are done. I used to have a video game design company. I don't anymore because of my disability. But in this, me and my partner, we never saw eye to eye. We liked different games. We had different approaches to game design. And you'd think, well, how do you get anything done? It's because we worked with each other to try to find a compromise that we could both agree to.
Mm-hmm.
So that, and our philosophy was um, this solution should reach a wider range of people than going with one or the other's ideas. So
Well,
we
yeah.
need people in this movement who disagree with each other and will fight for their end, but they must be willing to show some compromise to find a working solution. So I find them both very necessary.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think we agree more than you believe. I mean, maybe I was remiss to use the term cancel each other out. What I mean is they balance each other out in a way. Like they have different views. But I also I just wanted to add that one of the things that I think makes the MRA or the MRM work is that even though you have people that put their own spin on it and they argue and they bicker about how they're going to, get somewhere. We're all looking at the same goal. The goal is the same. So, it's just that all of the little factors, because this is still, I mean, it's been a movement that's been going on and off for a long time, like longer than most people know. It actually dates back to the early 20th century, but it's, sort of like rose and fell many times. And this latest version is like the biggest yet. But the goal is the same across the board. So, I think that Janet and Karen and Diana Davidson, they all want the same thing at the end of the day, but they're basically fighting about how to get there. Like what are the different, things to include or disclude or, whatever.
Yeah,
So I think that's
and,
where they falter
and
at.
that's where I see the MRA to be more successful than feminism in the long term. In the short term, yeah, feminism has been more successful, but in the long term, I think feminism is starting to lose. But let's go ahead and talk about Janet Bloomfield
Okay.
now. Now, she gave a response, JBTV traditionalist, where she tries to defend some of the misinformation that's been given to her. Now, the one thing that I like in this video is that she doesn't call out Diane Davidson by name. And it seems to me that she's not really retaliating against her. I don't know if Diane's the only person who has said something. I mean, the way that Janet is talking, it might seem like there are more people saying this about her. But she seems to be like, look, let me explain my point of view, let me get it out there, and then you can make your decision from there. And it's not like, well, you're saying all these bad things about me, so I'm going to turn the tables and say them about you. She's not doing that, and that's very mature.
Mm-hmm. Janet actually doesn't defend herself much at all. She actually kind of self, she kind of self-deprecates and laments her choices and tells the story about how she ended up where she was. The only way in which she does defend herself is that she basically maintains that, in her opinion, even though her lifestyle would appear as such, she does not consider herself to be a traditionalist, and she has no interest in seeing other women do that. She basically says, I made shitty choices because I'm an idiot, and
And you
this
know
is why
what?
I am where I am.
And I'm not too different from her. I mean, I went to college under the same belief that, if you do something that you love, you never work a day in your life. Every resource in high school kept telling me go into computers, go into computers. And I ended up liking game design instead. But it's like, well, if you like computers, then you should fix computers for a living. And it's like one of my greatest regrets in life is that I got a bachelor's degree. I wish I stopped at an associate's degree because that bachelor's degree has not opened up a single door for me.
Hmm.
People were more interested that I had my A plus certification than having a bachelor's degree. And it's a regret that I have. College nowadays is starting to become a waste of time. But in Janet's case, she didn't know what she wanted to do with her life. And
Right.
I think she went to college because that's what, everyone expects children to do. And they're like, well, what do you like doing? Well, I like watching movies. So she went into film theory where she just watched videos for 4 years. Now, I mean, she must have really been enjoying herself that it took her 4 years to realize that this was going nowhere. But yeah, she made a bad decision and then she tried again and made another bad decision. And, with college, you're racking up the debt and you're going to
Mm-hmm.
have to pay that back. So she's saying that, yeah, she went out there looking for a husband because she knew that the only way that she could have, a successful life, because what she always wanted was a career where she could also take care of her children. And it seems to me maybe she did set out to do this, although she says she didn't, to be a stay-at-home mom, or that she found a man who was okay with her being a stay-at-home mom. But that's just what happened for her.
Yeah, and that's that. I mean, I think that Janet did a really good job replying with in a few ways. One, she didn't turn it into she didn't try to create any drama. First off, by like calling out people's names and making it about the people that were directing criticisms at her, even though she could have, right? So she didn't do that, which is very classy. Two, she just told the truth about her life choices. She said, "This is what I did," because I think in her mind she's like, if you don't like the choices I made, it doesn't matter because I made them. This is just the truth. But I'd like to be able to still help and contribute, to the movement regardless of those choices that I made. And another thing is, the third thing I want to say is I think that one of the things that is often conflated, and I'm saying this in Janet's defense again, but I think that we too often conflate choosing to stay home with and raise children with a husband that wants you to stay home and raise children, or has agreed that that is what is best for the children, with traditionalism. I know that it's like I said, I know that it sounds like traditionalism because that just happens to be the choices they made, which lines up with it. But I think that we shouldn't think of being a stay-at-home mom as a dirty word, or something that is not a good choice. Uh, and I'm going to refer to someone else that I really like to follow on YouTube, Stefan Molyneux, that talks about the benefits to children when the mother stays home. If the father can't, I mean, the mother is optimal because you have to breastfeed for 18 months. That's what you should do, and then you should be with the child in the formative years, and it's good for them. It's good for their IQ. It's going to make them just better human beings in the long run. So, and that's just science. I mean, that's just like studies have shown that. So if a woman chooses to stay home and be a mother, and does all of those things that I said, and also does if she's choosing to stay home and be a mother and wife, then that becomes her new job basically. Then and she does that well, and the husband is not only is he okay with it, but they agreed as a team that that's what they would do, and he goes out and does his thing, and they're not like and they're living within their means to accomplish that goal, then I don't think that that's a problem. I think that that's a choice. It's like, and it's not necessarily screaming traditionalism. Now, I think that where the real confusion comes in is when Janet Bloomfield was talking about how when you're in college, you should try to be practical. Don't choose a major based on something that you love doing or some passion, because it may not be profitable. But rather, you should probably look at what's going to work best for you, because you have to spend all this time and money and energy going to college. And she didn't do that, and so she lamented doing that. But even when she said that stuff, it wasn't a gendered thing. She didn't say, ladies, you shouldn't go to school. You should find a husband and settle down and raise kids. She said, if you are going to go to college, you should make sure that you're going to do something that's going to be practical, because you have to spend, so much of your life working towards that. And if it doesn't work out, then, I mean, she has to also understand she was lucky that she was a woman, and she went, because let's be honest, if a man had gone to college for 4 years and gotten a degree he couldn't use, then he wouldn't be able to just find a wife that was just going to take care of him. I mean, that's very, very unlikely.
Yeah.
So, go ahead.
Yeah, I do agree with her though that if you're going to go to college, do it for something that's going to get you a career for the long term. I've met a lot of people in my time that say, "Well, I want to go to college and get a degree in philosophy." And to quote Dennis Miller, he's like, "The last person to get a job in philosophy is your college professor." So I do agree with her there. And then she also does talk about how she's in favor of if the man wants to stay home, and in the video she talks about putting a man that she used to live next to, her wife would pump milk into a bottle from her breast, give it to the husband would warm it up, and then put it under his armpit so the baby could feed from that. That's
Mm-hmm.
like, well, one, I never thought about doing that, but then again, I don't have children, so, but that's actually a really clever idea. So I don't think that she is a traditionalist, but I do agree with something that you said early on about Janet when we first started talking about her video, that she didn't really defend herself very well. And I
Mm-hmm.
want to go ahead and read the conversation I had with her. And before I do that, I need to preface this so it makes a little bit more sense. There's something that she said in the video that kind of threw me off a little bit. She's talking about how a career she wished she had pursued was being a hairdresser, and how
Yes.
she could go into the basement and, do something along those lines and maybe make $60 per customer. Even if it was one customer per week, it would be some money that she could make. So let me go ahead and read my conversation that I had with her real quick. And if you want to see this, I'm listed under as Madcat, MAD_CAT, all lowercase. In fact, I'll yell at you if you capitalize any letters at all for all of YouTube out there. Okay, so my first response to her after seeing the video. I like you, Janet, but I feel there's an unanswered question here. You state that you're an idiot and made stupid decisions about your education. You then say that if you could do a salon in your basement, you could make some extra money during the week while being the mother you want. So why not use the internet to learn how to do it? Find some how-tos, some blogs, YouTube videos on how to do it and develop your technique. For instance, I have a Bachelor of Science in Computer Technology. However, I decided to go into game design. I refused to go back to college and taught myself programming and how to make a game. I relied on resources found on the internet. What stops you from doing the same thing? Which I
Okay.
think is a very, very fair point. I'm not trying to demonize her or anything. I'm just trying to say, well, look, why can't you just go on the internet to learn what you need to and open up your salon? So her response was nothing. I wrote a novel, landed a literary agent in New York City, and we have the book out for sale at publishers right now. The years and money I wasted on college degrees contributed pretty much jack shit to the effort. That's my point. And I understand the point she's making, but if she wrote a novel and has a literary agent, why didn't she say that in the video? That's actually rather
Mm-hmm.
impressive. And, you know, something I do for my career now with my disability is I write books. I have 2 books published on Amazon right now. I'm working on my third one. They're self-published. I'm an indie developer, so I don't really go through a publisher and I don't have an agent. But that's impressive. And I'm thinking, why not say that in your video? Why wait until someone questions you about it? So I actually kind of misunderstood her when I responded back, so that's why this might sound a little confusing. I said to her, that is fantastic. I do indie publishing myself. Not ready yet for traditional. I'm disabled, so I can't really work. Writing has been my therapy to keep me from doing something stupid and regrettable. So believe me, I'm happy that you wrote a novel and got it published. That's my misunderstanding. I misunderstood that she says she's trying to get it published, not that she has it published yet. I understand your point about college. I regret getting my bachelor's. I wish I stopped at associates. That said, while I do like you as a person in your videos, that won't keep me from asking you tough questions. I know you didn't say that. I'm just letting you know where I'm coming from. I have found oftentimes when you try to have conversations with people through the internet like YouTube and Tumblr, and you mention something a little extra, they'll retort back with, I didn't say that. Where do you think I said that? And I'm not, well, I didn't say that you did say that. So I have to put in that little thing like, oh, I know you didn't say this. I'm just letting you know where I'm coming from.
Right.
So she responds back to me, I don't have it published yet. We've had a few passes, but six are still considering, so fingers crossed. Literary review I wrote for my PhD has been published. I've taken a few years leave of absence from the program to see what's with the book. If I can earn money writing, I would love to do that. If not, I will continue with the doctorate program and work as a professor, which at small teaching-oriented schools is a very nice job indeed. So she might be on her way to become a professor. That's a
Hmm.
pretty big deal.
Yeah, it is.
And it's like, why didn't she say this also?
Well, I mean, before you, I know you have to write a little. You have another response because I'm looking at it right now.
I'm
But
not going to read that.
I think that Janet is not necessarily interested in putting all those details in because then it would give the impression that she's on the defensive, and I don't think she is. I think that basically when the accusations were made or implied towards her about her being a traditionalist, about her, living off of her husband's dime and, being really comfy and all that, and she had an opportunity to retort, she saw it also as an opportunity to teach a life lesson, to, sort of lament her choices and not necessarily have to come across as, but wait, I actually have stuff in the works. I actually am doing these things. I'm just, like it hasn't landed yet, but it's going to soon, because that would imply that she's being defensive, and I don't think that she has a reason to be defensive. Like, she doesn't really. It's nice of her to give an explanation as to how she ended up where she is, but I don't think that she owed us, or owed anyone that explanation, but she chose to. And yeah, I mean, it's also like I'm this kind of person too, so I see where she's coming from. I'm the kind of person that really doesn't like to talk about stuff that I'm going to do. I like to talk about stuff that I've done. So, because there are a lot of people who talk a lot about what they're going to do, like their goals and the stuff they're going to go out and do and they achieve, things they're going to achieve, things they're going to accomplish. And then it sort of sets them, so they set themselves up for, or they set other people. A lot of times people don't actually follow through on this stuff. And I used to be one of those people, like when I was younger. I used to always say I want to do these, I want, these lofty goals. And then it wouldn't come to pass. Or something would happen, or I would just lose interest. So I have found in my later years as an adult now or whatever that I am less interested in talking about the stuff that I'm going to do and just talk about the stuff that I've done, and then, whether they're good or bad, and then secretly or quietly accomplish the goals that I want to accomplish. So I think that because it's more credible. It's actually kind of mature because you're not saying, hey, I'm going to do this thing. You just wait and see or whatever. It's more like, well, I did this thing, and I didn't need to tell anyone about it.
Well,
And
I think there's another possibility here. Now,
mhm.
in hearing that explanation, and I can understand a little bit better. I mean, still a lot of respect for you, Janet, and I think your accomplishments are pretty amazing, especially writing a novel and having an agent. I don't even have an agent yet. Any agents out there that want to hire, represent me, I'm free. But anyways, hello.
If they do comics, I'm free too.
I'm joking. I'm joking. I'm not using this as a platform for myself. But one other possibility is that she doesn't necessarily like to toot her own horn.
Exactly.
And let me go ahead and explain this a little bit further. Um, she went on to this video to address the points that was made to her about her being a traditionalist and her saying, okay, while this might be seen as traditional behavior, this is why I'm not a traditionalist and this is what happened with my life. Um, but she doesn't necessarily want to talk about these things because then it sounds like she's being egotistical, that she's being, oh, well, I have this professorship thing and I have this novel thing, so I have plans, and I understand that a lot. And I actually have that problem myself where I don't like to admit that I'm doing things like what I'm doing for you. I don't like
Hmm.
to really openly admit that. I do it when it becomes necessary to talk about what we're doing and get people's interest in all of that. But I don't go out of my way and like, guess what guess what, Twitter? Here I am. I'm doing all these great things. Everyone should really like me because of it. I don't want to come off that way. Even if
Hmm.
I try to be as pure as possible, I'm always afraid of coming off as, hey, you should like me for this reason. I want people to like me for other reasons. So I tend to be very secretive about things that I do. One, because I don't want to take away from what you're doing. What you do, Brian, is
Hmm.
really amazing. I really like what you're doing, and with the website, we need to focus on what you're doing. But at the same token, I also don't want to, when people decide if they like me or not, I want them to decide to like me for who I am, not for what I'm doing. The exception to this is with my novels. In that case, I actually have to break my own rule, and I love and hate marketing, but I have to talk about it a lot. I have to let people know, hey, I'm an author, go buy my book because, well, right now that's only my only source of income, and well, I want to do that for the rest of my life. So I have to talk about that. I have to let people know that. And it can be difficult sometimes because I'm always afraid that I'm going to put people off by saying, hey, I'm better than you, when I don't mean that. And I think to some parallel, that's where Janet's coming from, where she did tell me directly that she's doing these things. She didn't say it in her video because she didn't want the world to see her as, hey, I'm doing this, this, and this, so everything's fine. She didn't want to
Right.
misrepresent herself.
Right. I mean, I think that basically we're saying the same thing. It's like, it's not, and her channel's not about her. So why should she make it all about her? Um, but that being said, I think that uh, Diana Davidson, her her distrust, her wariness is it makes a lot of sense. I mean, I can't fault her for that. I like Janet a lot, but I can see where I see where Diana's coming from. I like Diana a lot too, though. So
Yeah, I like Diane a lot as well. I understand her distrust of women. Um, I'm not there yet. Maybe one day I'll become so distrustful of women, but I am weary of any girl that's like starts being nice to me. I'm like, what the hell's
yeah.
going
Well,
on? I'm
I
actually
think
like that with men too, but especially women.
yeah. Well, I think that it's important to understand where Diane Davidson's coming from, because when you just like on the surface or on the face of it, if you were to say or if we were to look at it like Diane Davidson is a female MRA that doesn't trust women, it would make it sound as though there's a few things happening. The main one is that Diana Davidson somehow believes that she is uniquely qualified to be a woman you're supposed to trust because she is a woman and she doesn't trust other women, right? So that would be her way. In a way, it would sound like she's saying, "Well, you can't trust most of them, but I'm one of the good ones." And I don't think that's her goal. I think that what she's saying is it's sort of like the way that it works. It's sort of like the thing about divorce, divorce court, right? If women often win custody battles. They often get alimony. They often get child support. And when I say often, I mean like 85% of the time. And so because there is a bias in divorce courts, there is not necessarily, it's not to say that women are bad, but there is an extra incentive for them to behave selfishly if they so choose. So basically, you put a loaded gun in the room and you say to the woman, she can use it if she wants to, and the man, he can use it 15% of the time. But she's basically got, she's being given the power, and what power usually does is it corrupts. So, you know, because the opportunity is afforded to them, they have a higher chance of abusing the power because they have access to more of the power more of the time. So, I mean, like, if in the beginning of history, or if the divorce court thing was reversed and it was men that won out most of the time, then they'd be the ones that we wouldn't trust. Because why would you? I mean, you're giving them, most of the benefits, essentially, in these specific cases. So why wouldn't there be men out there that would completely capitalize on it and totally take advantage of it? And that would create a culture of distrust on the part of women. So the reverse is basically happening. And I think that's what Diane Davidson's talking about, aside from the fact that women have always been the sex that has been protected, that has been looked after, that's been favored by men and women. So it would stand to reason that if men were to get equality, at least legally, that means that women stand to lose more. And they don't really, but I mean, like, in a way, the ones that would take advantage of the system would lose. Let's put it like that. The ones that wouldn't, nothing would change for them. So I think that's where Diane's distrust comes from, because you do have an environment with, where things work that way. And I don't fault her for that, but
I want
I,
to expand real quick on what you're saying about
yeah,
Diane, because I agree with you. It's not just that women have all this agency within the court system, it's that they seem to fight to keep it.
yeah,
Especially feminists, they really try very hard to keep this level of control, and they say they want equality, but they don't want to give up the things that they have earned. They just want to have all the things that men have, and feminism seems to really be the lion's share. The thing where it's like one for me, one for you, two for me, one for you, three for me, one for you,
yeah.
and that's what feminism seems to be. And I think this is where a lot of her distrust comes as well. Is the actions of feminism has been, we want equality, we want to be equal to men, but we don't want men to be equal to us, and we don't want to give up our freedoms, but we'll attack men on the fact that we think they don't want to give up their freedoms.
Yeah, and then, like, and then again, when it comes to, while it's often feminist lobbyists, which, by the way, I mean, I know this has been said a million times, but I feel like it can't be said enough. When we talk about feminists, we are not talking about women. We are talking about men and women that identify as feminists and actually have political power. These are feminist lobbyists. They can be male or female. In fact, I think more of them in government are male. But they are. No,
I've
it's
never
true.
heard that, but that just makes me laugh.
It's true. I mean, like, President Obama identifies as a feminist, which is, and it's funny because when he wants to identify as a feminist, that benefits other feminists. They can say, look, Obama's a feminist. But when feminists want to complain about, how we've never had a female president, or the low percentage of women in Congress or in, like, political power, they will use that to say, oh, this is why we need feminism. Even though there are fewer females in political power, the vast majority of the males that are in political power are feminists. And the reason why they're feminists is not because they really care, but because it gets them votes and they want to stay in political power. So, it's all, and this is sort of like a joke that everyone over there is in on. They know. They don't care. So, and that goes back to what I was going to say. Feminist lobbyists are the ones that basically set up all of these policies and institutions and groups and all that. And when you say feminists are the ones that, like, fight to keep, the power they have, or, like, the influence or the bias in the court system, and alimony and welfare and child support and all that stuff. Most of the time, the average person on the street, if you were to ask them if they were a feminist or not, without knowing what the actual effects of it are, and if all they have is a dictionary definition, which is the thing that gets thrown around all the time, most people, or at least a large number, would happily identify with it because they believe in equality. So they would say, well, yeah, I believe in equality. And then you'd say, well, that makes you a feminist. And they say, okay. I mean, they don't really care, but by default, people generally identify without
Well,
knowing, or think they do. You
there's
know?
another thing going on that you've kind of touched on, but there's a specific phrase for it. And I've actually talked to I don't know her name, but I know it's Naughty Nerdist.
That's
Poplar,
Rachel Edwards.
Rachel
Rachel
Edwards.
Edwards, my good friend from the Honey Badgers. Hi, Rachel. Go ahead.
She's
Naughty
not
Nerdist.
here.
She might be.
Okay, so something I said to her, and she agreed with me on. There's something called the Prius effect. Have you ever heard of it?
Not by that term, but I might know the effect. Go ahead.
Yeah, you probably do. The Prius effect is based on consumer behavior, where people will buy a Prius for the social status of owning a Prius,
Exactly.
but not for helping the environment. And they tend to be the worst offenders of carbon footprinting, that they pollute more than the average person, even though they have a Prius. That having a Prius is a status symbol. Having an iPod or an iPhone is a status symbol, even though Android is better. And I don't want to get in that debate, but um, even
I
though there's
like no,
better.
I like Android better. It's not a debate.
Okay.
I don't like Apple products. I'm sorry. This shit's like a fucking monopoly. But go
Here's
ahead.
why, and I used to do iPhone support, so I know a little bit more. But and I think this is what's going on with feminism, is that a lot of people are becoming feminist because that's what's popular. And if you say you're a feminist, then you get all of this support from people when you don't really believe in the idealism that feminism supports. Sure, you might want equality, but I think you're saying you're feminist just for the popularity of it.
Hmm. Oh yeah, for sure. Especially, like that's where you get these coffee house feminists, where they believe in equality, they believe in all the good stuff, they don't know about the bad stuff, or they think that that is some kind of far left, radical, you know, odd man out kind of feminism. Because they didn't want to. That's not what they were. That's not what they signed up for. But they're not ready to give up the label because the label affords them social benefits.
Hmm.
So they're just instead they'll separate themselves from it like it's a far branch on a tree, without acknowledging that as actually the coffee house feminism doesn't do anything politically. The radical crazy shit that they think is radical and crazy and way out there, that's the stuff that's actually doing shit. So, but that's why like you say, identify with the actions, not with the written word. So.
And I also think this is what's happening with Joss Whedon, why he supports Anita Sarkeesian, why he's anti-Gamergate, and why he identifies as a feminist, because he doesn't actually know what's going on with the feminist movement and all the bullshit that they have done. He probably has like a limited viewpoint. Someone's like, "Oh, go check this out," and it's mostly he because it's like you consider Buffy, Dollhouse,
Hmm.
Firefly, and maybe even the Avengers to a degree.
Hmm.
That a lot of this seems to be directed at women. And
Hmm.
that's true. It is directed at women, but one aspect of women is feminism. And if
Hmm.
he pisses off feminism, he loses a part of he loses part of his major target audience.
Yeah, I
So
think
I think he's saying he's a feminist to try to keep them.
oh, absolutely. Joss Whedon wants to keep his audience, and plus, I would argue that the vast majority of Hollywood in general is pretty much on the left and pretty feminist. But definitely on the left at the very least. That's why when you have like the few, I wouldn't say they're few, but when an actor or director or someone in Hollywood kind of like is outed as being conservative or on the right, suddenly they become the butt of everyone's jokes. And I think that's because they're not falling in lockstep with the rest of the tribe. So when Kirk Cameron, is it Kirk Cameron? Yeah, came out as like being really religious. then he became a joke. When Kevin Sorbo came out as conservative, he became a joke. When Kirsten Dunst wrote,
Actually,
was in.
I'll disagree with you on that one. It's
Okay, go ahead.
not so much that Kirk Cameron became a creationist or Kevin Sorbo became a creationist. It's what they did with their actions that made them a joke. When
Mm-hmm.
Kirk Cameron teamed up with Ray Comfort and talked about like how bananas was a proof that God existed because it fits perfectly in your hand without ever doing the research that bananas were cultivated to be like that. Or Kevin Sorbo did the movie, God, I forget what it's called, God is Dead or something like that,
Something like that,
where
yeah.
he's supposed to be playing an atheist, but
Mm-hmm.
he's not like any atheist I've ever seen before. And the
Well,
argument
yeah, sure,
points
but I
out
mean,
why.
like the thing is though, is that when Joss Whedon supports feminism, he supports a hate movement. But because the people on the left don't want to see it that way, it's not crazy. But if the left wasn't popular, he would be seen as crazy. Like, you see what I'm saying? So his ideas about his alignment with a movement of hatred against men and women, okay, which is if you do a little research, it's easy to find out, and it's there are people discussing it all over the place, but he aligns with it, and because it's popular, not only do people not even bother to look these facts up, but they forgive and they assume that he has the best of intentions. But because Kevin Sorbo, who also probably has good intentions, but he comes from a different belief system where he is religious and he's spiritual and he believes in God and he's a creationist, whatever. And yes, his ideas are also radical, and some of them, if he believes that the Earth is only 6,000 years old, and if he believes that dinosaurs and Jesus walked, together, then that is also stupid. But one of them, in the eyes of the public, is clearly seen as stupid, and the other is not seen as stupid, even though they're both stupid. And
Well,
that's
I can.
because, the stuff on Joss Whedon's side is more, we accept it and we don't even, like, challenge it. But the stuff on Kevin Sorbo's side has been challenged, has been debunked, it's been defeated, and as a result, he's sort of like, again, it's seen as a joke. Um,
Well,
so,
and I want to correct something else that you just said right there.
hmm
That because of his beliefs, that's why he's a joke. And it's like, once again, it's his actions. I could care less what someone's political stance is, what their beliefs are. That's fine as long as you treat others around you with respect. But going out of your way, trying to put a certain group of people down for no reason other than to promote what you think is right, that's a mistake. And you could say that we're doing that with feminism, but the difference between that is that we're trying to demonstrate, we show you where the faults within feminism are to help you see where our points are coming from. People like Kevin Sorbo are basically saying, well, if you don't believe in God, then why are you arguing about it so much? If you don't believe in
hmm
God, stop talking about it. And it's like, dude, the issue is so much more complex than that. Don't go on TV and say shit like that, because that only makes me dislike you even more. And if
hmm
it was simply like, well, I was doing a job and I think atheists have a little bit more to them, but I don't know them, so I can't comment, I'd have a little bit more respect because he's an actor. He does a
hmm
role. But then when he turns around and is like, oh, well, I think that everyone really does believe in God. They just want to sin and whatever. I don't think he's directly say that, but he's pretty much on that line of thought.
hmm
That's where I start to lose my respect for people. But you are correct. It's how the media sees everything. And right now, our media is very Republican based. It's also very feminist based, which is an interesting contrast. But that's why we're seeing like Anita and Brianna on all of these news stations talking about um, all of the troubles that they face because the media is very feminist Although I still find it funny that feminists are like, the media always looks down on us. And I'm like, where?
Hmm.
Where do they do that? I'm still waiting for that to happen.
Yeah, no. I mean, we basically give women whatever they want. Um, and like I think you said something that I'm not sure I understand. You said that the media is Republican based, and it was my understanding is that the majority of media, especially the news media, is very much on the liberal side of things, with the exception of Fox, which is the only Republican side or the conservative side, and then a couple of pockets that you find on like radio, like Rush Limbaugh, because it's sort of like there isn't a lot of other right wing news. The only right wing news source that I'm aware of is Fox News, and everything else is either moderate or left wing. And even the moderate stuff usually has a left slant to it, like CNN is getting, moving farther left, and Huffington Post is really far left.
Let
Um,
me go ahead and rephrase what I meant because you're
okay.
right about that. It's not that it's more Republican. It just seems like it always seems to favor the Republicans. What I specifically mean by this is that they don't seem to really care about reporting the truth about
Well, neither
things.
side does, though.
Neither side really cares. There's no journalistic integrity, and I'm hoping that if Gamergate resolves the journalistic integrity of video game journalism, they go after news media next.
Oh,
And
everybody's talking about that. I've been talking about it too. I think
but
that's definitely um, because they're showing their hand, with all this Gamergate stuff, and like when Brianna Wu and company and Anita Sarkeesian, they all fled to mainstream media to try to use a larger megaphone to distract from the real point of what Gamergate was. The mainstream media, all of them did reports favorable to their side of the story, which is it's not constructive at all. And the only time they even entertained the opposite side was when Huffington Post Live, did like a Women of Gamergate side piece, and that was it. But every other time, it's been like, she was on Colbert last night. So I mean, Anita
yeah,
Sarkeesian was, that is.
yeah, I've seen a little bit about that. I didn't actually watch it, but apparently Colbert asked her to name three things that about feminism or whatever, and she didn't name even one.
He wanted her to name three games that she felt were sexist, and she said it's not about the games, it's about the culture, and he didn't. Okay, so I just read. I got to say this. I know that it's not related to what we're talking about with Diane Davidson and Janet Bloomfield, but I got to get this off my chest. He brought her on the show and basically kissed her ass. He joked with her. Because he's playing. This is the thing about Colbert. Colbert was a spinoff of Jon Stewart. Jon Stewart's show is a comedy, satire, news thing that is very, 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 very left. And it's actually getting to the point where you can't tell his news from regular news. Like MSNBC and him are almost the same. But it's supposed to be funny, so who cares, right? It's a comedy
That's where I
show.
get all my news from.
But some people get their news from there. That's what I was gonna say. Like this is how much of a parody it is. And Stephen Colbert used to be the right wing version of Jon Stewart on Jon Stewart's show, right? And so he was so funny and popular, they moved him to his own show. But here's the thing, and I think this is really important. The difference between Colbert and Jon Stewart is Jon Stewart plays the smart liberal that knows, like how stupid everything is and basically makes jokes, and he's always on the ball. Stephen Colbert plays a parody of a right-wing news guy. So he says things that are intentionally dumb and, way out there on purpose. So basically, when you're laughing at Jon Stewart, you're laughing at his jokes, or you're laughing with him. If you're laughing at Stephen Colbert, you're actually laughing at the character that he's playing. So that's how they differ. So when he brought Anita Sarkeesian onto his show, he played the whole like Bill O'Reilly, kind of jump down your throat, you know, um, and attack you with points or whatever kind of role, but his points were so ridiculous and so far-fetched and so, they were so weak, they were so easily dismantled that Anita didn't even have to respond to them because he basically, destroyed his own arguments and made them funny because, again, his show is meant to entertain, it's meant to make you laugh. So when he brought her out, I was wondering why is she even on here? Now, I watched it on YouTube through some guy that taped it on his camcorder. I don't have cable. So, but basically, he kissed her ass. The only thing that she stumbled on is when he said, can you name 3 games that have sexism in them? And she said, it's not about the games, it's about the whole culture. And then he kind of got her to, like, spill the beans and say Grand Theft Auto, which is, that's like the lowest possible hanging fruit you could possibly pick. But, hey, it's Anita Sarkeesian, right? So,
well, I can answer that question. Name 3 games that have sexism in it. In fact, I'm going to condense it down to 1. All of them do. Now, what do I mean by that? I mean that they're sexist to men and women, not just women.
mm-hmm.
And if you want to start looking at video games like that, I mean, like, what percentage of men actually die in video games compared to women? It's probably about 95%. When you're shooting down your enemy, it's a man you're shooting at.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not even talking about first-person shooter games. I'm talking about all the other kind of games, even Grand Theft Auto. You're shooting at men. Now,
Mm-hmm.
in Grand Theft Auto, you can shoot women as well, but generally in your missions, you're going after other men. The big bosses that you're fighting against, generally men. So, and there is sexism for men as well in there, not just for women. So you want to start playing the game of where the sexism is, you also have to consider that men are being sexualized, men are being put into specific roles and treated unfairly, more so than women are.
I don't think, personally, I don't think that there's much sexism at all. I think that to be sexist is an intent, not an interpretation, and that is to say, because if you that would mean that if I played Grand Theft Auto and I went into part of for example, if I was playing Red Dead Revolver, which is a really great Western game, and I went to Mexico, we can cross the border, and I went there and got into a fight with a lot of the banditos down there, and I killed a whole bunch of banditos, right? Because there was a mission and I had to kill them. And then and I showed that video, I uploaded it. Here's this battle with banditos, and then people came on there and told me that it was racist because I was killing Mexicans for an hour, right? That's the same ludicrous argument because you're telling me that by making that declaration that it's racist to kill Mexicans in a game where you happen to be in Mexico and there are Mexicans shooting at you and you have to shoot back, that is basically saying that when Rockstar was making the game, they were like, we're going to kill Mexicans and it's going to be glorious because we hate Mexicans so much. That's what I'm saying. Like, it's not intention. That's where things like sexism and racism come in. It's interpretation. And when people interpret a racist act or a sexist act or an ableist act or a homophobic act, whatever it is, unless you can really see, there are cases where it's like, wow, that's kind of, that's pretty bad. Like if you watch an old Looney Tunes from the 1940s during World War II, and they caricature, the Japanese with the glasses and teeth and stuff. Okay, I can see that. But if you just happen to be in Grand Theft Auto and you happen to kill a bunch of dudes, I don't think that that's sexist against dudes. And I also don't think that it's sexist against women if you happen to, buy a prostitute and then kill her and take her money, because that is to say that when they were designing the game, they were like, well, this is a criminal underworld, satire, and there are prostitutes, and so we're going to put prostitutes in the game, and prostitutes are mostly female, so we're going to put female prostitutes. But there are also female businesswomen, female lawyers, female nurses walking around, passengers, girlfriends, So it's not like they only presented them one way, just like
Now,
any of the other characters.
I actually do agree with you 100% on that. And the point that I was making, there was something specific I said. If we start looking for sexism, then we have to compare both sides.
Yeah,
But I actually don't think that there really is any sexism in video games.
yeah. I mean,
Um,
there
but
are some cases, but they're very few and far between.
And I agree.
You
Yeah,
know.
yeah, basically. But let me give a point about this because Anita's always talking about Super Mario Brothers and now how you have to go save the princess. And it was actually something that you were saying as well. First off, I think Princess Peach is running away from Mario. Mario is just an obsessed boyfriend, and she's trying to get away and start a life with Bowser because there is no story in the original Mario Brothers. We can make up whatever we want. But what do you do in the game? You go through levels.
Hmm.
In fact, if you really look at it, the time that you spend with the princess is less than 1% of the entire game.
Hmm.
You spend more time going through puzzles. When I was a boy talking about Mario Brothers, we didn't like, oh man, I really want to go save the princess. Hey, can we go to your place so we can save the princess? No, we're saying, hey, let's go play Mario Brothers. Oh, I just got through World 8, on the first level. Like, really cool. I haven't done that yet. What's level 8-2 look like? We could care less about the princess. Hell, it could have been a big sack of money for all we care.
It doesn't matter. It was all about playing the game.
Yeah,
It wasn't about saving the princess. It's just that this has been explained by so many other people who did it way better. Basically, in the old days, when you were running games that were on like 8-bit processors, and you didn't have a whole lot of time to set the story, you would do it in the shortest amount of time possible. And usually, one thing that motivates people is to rescue people they care about, which is what the princess is, a person that they care about. And so that's a way to get things going like really, really fast.
yeah,
And that's all it is. It's like Double Dragon. Like, have you ever played Double Dragon?
yep.
Double Dragon is one of my all-time favorite games as a kid. And the opening is like less than 10 seconds. This gang walks up to your girlfriend, punches her in the stomach, and carries her off. And then you guys come out of the garage pissed off. And basically, you know what you have to do. Like, they didn't even have to use any words. So, and the whole thing, it's just supposed to motivate you. It's not
And this is
supposed
actually
to.
something honey badgers talk about a
Yeah,
lot is tropes and cliches that these are basically shortcuts that we use to give a whole lot of story without having to say a whole lot.
yeah. I think I'm not a writer per se. You might know about this, but there's something called the meta myth, and the meta myth is the hero's journey, basically.
Oh
And
yeah, I know about
most of these games sort of fall into that narrative. And older ones, Ghosts and Goblins, all the ones that involve rescuing a girl or saving the world
You want to know what the
or
kicker is to
whatever.
that? You want to know what the
Huh?
kicker is to that?
Oh, go ahead.
The monomyth or the hero's journey. The damsel in distress that you're saving is going
Mm.
through her own, and one of the steps, is going through what she's going through. We
Yeah.
don't ever get to see her story, but she's within her own monomyth. Most
Hmm.
90% of the characters are within their own storyline, and we just sometimes intersect. Something that we have in writing that's become popular in the last year is that every character thinks they're the main character in their own story.
Of course. Makes perfect sense.
All right, so let's actually get back to Janet and Diane because we should probably end this soon. If you've made it this far, thank you. We love talking. But yeah, I still respect both of them. I do understand where Diane is coming from, and I don't think less of her. I understand her point of view because me personally, I've had to deal with women that have demonstrated to me that they're more about themselves and they don't care about people around them. I've been abused by women before. Um, women that have tried to manipulate me to do things that they want to do, giving no concern with my well-being. and I understand completely where she's coming from. Saying that, I also understand where Janet is coming from. That she got herself into a situation by making a series of bad decisions. She seems to be trying to do something meaningful in her life, being part of the MRA, writing, possibly going back into college, seeing how things are going. So she regrets a lot of things she does, but she's very real about it. She's openly admitting, like, look, I fucked up. There's no two ways about it. I fucked up. I got into this situation, but I'm making the most of it. So, I mean, at the end of the day, I respect both of them. And this wasn't about trying to resolve between the two. It's just discussing the issue itself. So
Hmm.
that's my piece on it. What's your piece on it?
Um, yeah, I mean, yeah, I've said this before already. I like Diana's work. I like Janet's work. I think that Diana is definitely right to be suspicious of any and all women that might be looking to infiltrate the MRM for their own personal needs, because a lot of guys that are in it are vulnerable, which is something that you and I already talked about. So I could see her being protective of the movement and warning against it. And I think that's a good thing. And I bet that Janet would agree with her on that if that was the point that she was trying to make. She would probably agree with that. And I think that it is handy information to know that Janet Bloomfield is living the way she is. But ultimately, and I think that I'm glad that Janet was honest and put that forward when it was challenged. I don't think she had intention on hiding that info. I think that she just didn't really want to talk about herself, because she was focusing on the things that she wanted to do. And I think that that's really what matters, is that her actions, within the movement in her personal life are more important than what her position might imply. Like her current status. Because I know that there are a lot of women in the men's rights movement who have been there, who have left. Like Woolly Bumblebee, for example, who is an old one, but I actually liked her too. That have lived with their husbands, raised their kids, and all that. And some of them may have more traditionalist leanings, and I think it's pretty clear that the MRM don't want to go back to that life, and that's usually why they fight against tradcons just as much. Although tradcons are really easy to dismiss because they're making a case for something that isn't really, at least in like highly populated areas, it's not very accepted. Like in general, that's sort of dying out. Unfortunately, the nuclear family just isn't what it used to be. So, in closing, I guess what I'm saying is I still like them both. I understand both sides of the argument. I don't think that this is going to mean much in the long run. I think that they both have the best of intentions, and they just have, one of them's obviously cautious and critical, while the other one is just being forthright and honest. And I think that those are all good traits to have.
Yeah, I definitely agree with all of that, and I'm glad that we could have a conversation on this. And I really think that with everything that's going on with the MRA, the MRM, and all of that, that we should start having more males come forward and talk about these issues and talk about their reaction. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to set this up. And I'm glad that me and you, Brian, were able
Mm-hmm.
to do this tonight. And I definitely invite you to do this again. I know that we both get very busy with everything, especially setting up the website. And I'm going to be doing NaNoWriMo in a couple of days from now, which lasts for 30 days. So everyone wish me luck on that. But yeah, I definitely invite you to do this again. I know we went a little bit long on this one, but I hope everyone enjoys. Now I
Yeah.
understand why the honey badgers always seem to go 3 hours. They can't help themselves.
Well, guys, YouTube saves the progress, so if you can't listen to the whole thing, just stop it and come back. And
Yeah.
I also appear on Honey Badger videos. I'm going to totally, like, prostitute myself. And those are great. And yeah, you should check them out. So Honey Badger Radio is basically what you're looking for.
Well, I'm going to whore you out. So also we have the website coming up. You can check out Brian's Weebly account right now, where he does have all of his comics. But we are moving to a more of a .com environment. So we're getting that set up right now. We're making some excellent progress. I've actually had a couple of people look at it already, and they're very impressed with the way the layout is. And we're hoping to really create a community off of this. It's going to take us a little bit of time to get there, but if you want to read Brian's awesome comic, that yeah,
Yeah,
we'll just leave it at awesome. Yeah, if you want to
thank
read
you.
it, I mean, we're going to make it a lot easier for you to.
All
Now it's
right.
your turn to whore me out.
Um,
I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
okay.
All
Well,
right.
I will. I do want to do another little shout out. I did a video yesterday that was a lot of fun. There is a woman, that YouTuber. Her name is Sour Grape, and she has some really funny political videos. And she also does a series. It's related to GamerGate, which is why I'm bringing it up. She has a series called Games as Art, where basically she goes to these indie devs websites and plays their artsy, very pixelated, very profound games. And I was on her latest one, and we basically both did them together, and it was very fun and a lot of laughs. So you should check that out. Her YouTube channel is Sour Grape. And yeah, I mean, this was a lot of fun.
All right, so I'm going to go ahead and stop here before. I mean, we have up to 8 hours to do, but we should stop somewhere.
No, this is probably okay. I think we should. I don't
So
even know how long we went. How long did we go?
I don't know. I,
It
I,
doesn't time it?
um, no, I don't see a time function within this, which is a
That's
little
odd.
strange. It's like a casino; they don't let you know what the time is.
Did you stop it?
No, I haven't stopped it yet. We're still going. I have to sign off, man.
Oh, that's how you stop it? Okay.
All right,
I thought you could just stop it.
I can stop it, but I have to give my sign off to the crowd.
Oh, so we're literally talking into the. Okay, go ahead.
So be quiet for 12 seconds and then you can talk again. Yeah, I'm not really that mean in real life, people, just online. All right, so thank you for listening, everyone. This is Kat signing off.